On this week's Waypoint, Riot is testing out controversial Lee Sin changes, and the 2014 All-Star Tournament is heading to Paris. What's up, guys, and welcome to Waypoint, your weekly League of Legends recap for March 13th, 2014. I'm your host, Mike Schaffnet. Now, this week's episode is going to be all about Lee Sin because the Blind Monk is going through some changes on the public beta environment. It appears that Riot has two main problems with the current incarnation of Lee Sin, and one of which is the fact that he's a ranged melee tanky DPS assassin mage tank support jungler that has just a lot of power in the early game, especially when it comes to each of his abilities. In execute, a slow, a jump, and even a knockback, in Riot's eyes, he's just too dominant early on. The second problem that Riot has with the current incarnation of Lee Sin is how hard his power falls off into the late game. Riot believes that no other champion in the game has such an extreme power curve as Lee Sin, since his early game strength and late game weakness are equally unhealthy. So Riot has decided to address these issues with some balance changes that are coming to the PvE. Now, before we look into these changes, it's worth noting that everything that we're about to discuss is on the PvE and can change because Riot is listening and responding to feedback. Speaking of feedback, I think it's fair to say that these changes have not been received well by the community or the professional players and coaches. CLG coach and OGN caster Monte Cristo tweeted, "Lee Sin changes are silly. He's one of the few champions that has remained balanced and consistently used in pro play across the metas." Alliance top laner Wicked also chimed in on the topic, saying that just saw the Lee Sin changes and I'm shocked. Why would you change one of the most popular heroes if he's already balanced? So let's get into all of these new changes. His passive flurry is where Riot is focusing his late game power. Currently, after using an ability, Flurry adds a 40% attack bonus speed to his next two auto attacks within 3 seconds, with each auto attack returning him 15 energy. In the proposed changes, that 40% attack speed will scale up to 100% at level 16, which is obviously a monstrous buff. To have that much attack speed while focusing on raw AD items like Ravenous Hydra is absolutely insane. Next, his Q Sonic Wave has been changed to deal less damage at lower ranks. To make up for this, instead of scaling off bonus AD, it'll now scale off of total AD as you rank up Q. The word total here is very important, as without it, it would actually be a huge nerf. Now, it's definitely a nerf to his early game, but after putting a few points in Q, it should actually balance itself out to be a buff by the mid game. The second activation of Lee's Q Resonating Strike is seeing the same damage change, but more importantly, it'll no longer deal 8% of the target's missing health. Instead, it'll now deal up to 50% bonus damage up to 150% total damage. This does two things. It means that you'll always want to double Q for max damage, and that it should work well with armor penetration against tanks. Next up, the game changer and proposed changes to his W safeguard will completely change how people play Lee Sin. The shield and jump effect remain the same, but the cost has been increased to 100 from 50. And when used on an ally champion, including Lee Sin, it'll refund 50 energy. But the problem here is that, do you guys know what the best Lee Sin players do all of the time? They jump to minions or jump to wards. But jumping to them will now cost 100 energy and give you no refund. You see, the classic Lee Sin play here is to Q in, ward behind your enemy, W jump to the ward, and then R kick your target into your own team. Sound confusing? Well, here's an example from Insec at last year's All-Star match.
Impactful for this game.
And the fact is that we talked about who would maybe get that as Lee Sin is going to go in the on towards Yellow Pete. He gets knocked up, Kennen.
Pretty quick, right? Super skillful, super rewarding to pull off. Well, that'll still be possible, but you'll be left with just enough energy for one more ability, and then you're out. Yes, you can restore your energy with your passive, but you need to use an ability and auto attack twice to get back 30 energy. You've just used 3 of your abilities to start the fight, and you don't have a lot of options left. Next up, Tempest, his E, will now deal significantly less damage at each rank and scale off of total AD instead of bonus AD. If you build tanky and level up your E, the nerf isn't that big, but if you build up damage, you'll definitely see less of it. Just as importantly though is that Tempest will now deal physical damage instead of magic damage. Yes, that means that you can take advantage of armor penetration, but it makes it much easier for your opponents to itemize against you, especially when you're in the lane. Finally, Lee's R Dragon Rage has seen the damage dramatically scaled down, and instead of scaling off bonus AD, it'll now scale off of total AD, which needless to say here, won't make up for the huge damage nerf. However, if you use the kick offensively and knock the enemy into their own teammates, you'll deal bonus damage for every member that gets hit. So if you can knock your target into 2 teammates, it'll actually come out to be about the same amount of damage. According to Riot, Dragon's Rage was hit so hard because Lee Sin is a complete beast in duels when combined with his new passive, which I can definitely see. Keeping in mind that all of this can change and that Riot is actively engaging with the community on this one, what do you guys think it'll mean for Lee Sin? I think he'll see less play, honestly, and especially up at the pro level. Lee Sin was never really picked for his damage, he was picked for his utility and early game power. It's possible that a new meta Lee Sin style will appear, perhaps more focused on his strong dueling with his new passive 100% attack speed, as well as a few damage items that kind of sound scary, and he could turn into a real sustained damage threat, but honestly, how much does a melee AD carry like Fiora see? Not really much. Here's the strange thing though, look at the LCS right now. Lee Sin is more popular than ever, but games are going fairly long. The various tower changes that we saw in Season 3 ensured to that, plus the removal of oracles. So if Lee Sin is so weak late, why are pros picking him for long games? And if they are picking him for long games, why is his weakness late game a problem? But of course Riot can't balance the game around the LCS, they've got a lot of things they've got to look at. These are definitely some of the most controversial balance changes that I've seen in an incredibly long time. I'd love to hear what you guys think here, so leave us a comment below and let us know what you think of these new Lee Sin changes. Now, it's no surprise that Riot has been doing a phenomenal job delivering and developing their lore lately. We've seen a massive push from them these last few months to present the story to us, rather than burying it in text. Not that the stories weren't there to begin with, we just don't want to take the time to read them. And that's why services like Audible.com are so great. With hundreds of hours of audiobooks that are available right now for download, you can have your favorite stories presented to you, instead of reading a 300-page novel. With a plethora of video game related topics to choose from, there's just about something for everyone on Audible.com. And if you head on over to audible.com/gamebreaker, we're going to hook you up with a free 30-day trial as well as give you a free audiobook so you can get started right now. And finally this week, yes, I know only 2 topics this week, but those Lee Sin changes were huge. Anyway, Riot has announced the 2014 All-Star Tournament will be held from Thursday, May 8th to Sunday, May 11th at Le Zenith Arena in Paris, France. The arena boasts a capacity of over 6,000, which likely can't go up no matter how many people Riot wants to cram in because of safety regulations. Ticket prices and when those tickets will go on sale have yet to be announced, but Riot Shantzilla has promised a minimum of 24-hour notice to ensure that everybody who wants one will have a fair shot. However, with the event at the start of May, I would kind of expect tickets to go on sale relatively soon to accommodate for travel arrangements. The All-Star format has seen a major overhaul since 2013. Last year, we all voted for our favorite players in each role, with each region sending 5 players and building a team around them to compete in the tournament. There were also fun challenges to determine the best players in each role, with top versus top or duo lane versus duo lane going head to head. This format was met with some criticism from the community, with cries that it was just a popularity contest, and with an extra spot at Worlds on the line, it was a valid point. This year, the regional winners of the NALCS, EULCS, LPL, GPL, and OGN will be the All-Stars of the main event. After fighting through an intense group stage, the top 4 teams will advance to a best of 3 semifinals, with the winners meeting up for an epic best of 5 final for $50,000. Riot listened to the complaints from last year, and even though this year it's pretty clear that it isn't a popularity contest, there's no extra spot for Worlds on the line. But the community voting aspect isn't completely gone. At the beginning of each day of competition, there will be an All-Star Challenge. The community will vote for 2 players from their region to be sent to Paris for a total of 10 players overall. Those 10 players will split into teams of 5, with 1 player from each region on both teams. Each day, the teams will compete in a unique game mode, and even better, fans will be able to influence which game modes the teams play. If you want my vote though, I'm putting it in for one for all. 5 pro Lee Sins versus 5 pro Lee Sins? Yes please. That does it for this week's episode of Waypoint. Be sure to check back every week on Friday for updated League of Legends news. If you guys like this video, please like and comment below. I promise it helps spread our audience and we reach more people. If you guys want to see more League of Legends content, recaps, and updates, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, LOL Nation TV. I'm Mike Shafton. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Mike Shafton. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys at the next Waypoint.
Game Breaker TV.